The evening had started like any other casual gathering, the kind Emma usually attended to catch up with friends, share a few laughs, and then leave without lingering too long. She had dressed simply, a soft sweater and jeans, nothing too flashy, because she didn't want attention, at least not the kind that made people notice her appearance more than her presence. But tonight there was a tension in the air she couldn't explain. One that seemed to hum beneath the surface of every laugh and clinking glass. Daniel had been there from the start, leaning casually against the wall, holding a cup of coffee with that easy half-smile he always carried. He didn't push himself into conversations or make jokes to draw attention. Instead, he seemed to observe quietly, and somehow it made him magnetic. Emma had always admired that quiet strength in him, though she would never have admitted it aloud. The room was warm, filled with soft chatter, the sound of music spilling from a corner speaker, and the occasional burst of laughter that seemed almost louder in the intimate space. Outside, the sky had begun to darken, clouds thick and heavy, hinting at rain, though no one had paid much attention. Emma moved through the room with a drink in hand, smiling politely at acquaintances and exchanging brief pleasantries, but her eyes kept drifting toward Daniel. He was standing near the fireplace now, the candlelight flickering over his face, casting small shadows that seemed to deepen the thoughtful expression in his eyes. She couldn't tell if he was noticing her watching him or if he was lost in thought, as he often appeared to be, but her heart gave a small, involuntary leap at the thought that he might be aware of her gaze. The first drop of rain tapped against the window with a soft, almost shy sound. Then another and another, until the soft tapping grew into a steady rhythm. A few people glanced outside, murmuring about the approaching storm, but no one seemed concerned. Emma, however, felt a slight unease settle over her. There was something about storms that always made her heart race a little faster, as if the thunder was not outside but inside her chest. Daniel finally stepped closer, holding his cup a little tighter, and offered her a smile that was faint but somehow comforting. "Looks like we might be stuck here a while," he said quietly, his voice low but clear. Emma nodded, trying not to let her curiosity show too openly, but the way he said it made her pause. There was something in his tone, a note of something unspoken, that tugged at her attention. As the rain fell harder, the power flickered once, then twice, and finally gave way to darkness. The room dimmed to shadows, and a few nervous laughs broke out among the guests. Someone fumbled for candles, and soon the soft glow of flames filled the room, dancing across walls and furniture. Emma watched Daniel as he moved calmly toward the center, helping to arrange the candles with steady hands. There was something mesmerizing about the way he worked, hurried, precise, and patient. He didn't speak much, but every small movement seemed to carry weight. A silent message that he cared about the moment, about the space, about her presence once the candles were set and the soft light replaced the harsh glare of electricity. The room felt quieter, more intimate. People began to disperse, some heading for the kitchen, some retreating to corners to talk in hushed tones, and then, slowly, the crowd thinned. One by one, guests said their goodbyes, leaving Emma and Daniel alone in the room, surrounded by the flickering shadows and the steady hum of the storm outside. The silence that followed was different from the easy quiet of friendship. It was heavier, more deliberate, as if the space itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Emma felt a flutter of anticipation she couldn't explain, a nervous excitement mixed with a faint apprehension. Daniel didn't rush to fill the silence. Instead, he leaned against the table, hands resting lightly on its surface, eyes fixed on the candlelight that painted the room in shades of gold and shadow. Emma moved closer, instinctively, though not too close. She wasn't entirely sure why. But something in the way he looked at the room made her want to be near him. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said softly, her voice almost lost under the steady patter of rain. Daniel's gaze shifted toward her, steady and unwavering. "Yeah," he replied simply, but there was a weight to his tone that made Emma's heart flutter. There had been countless nights like this, countless times they had shared quiet moments, yet something about tonight felt different. It wasn't just the storm or the darkness, or even the isolation. It was the way he looked at her. The way his eyes held a question she wasn't sure she wanted to answer yet. They talked in fragments at first, small words about the storm, about nothing in particular, just to fill the gaps. But each sentence, each pause, seemed to carry a hidden significance. Emma noticed the slight way he leaned forward when he spoke. The way his eyes searched hers, almost as if he was trying to read her thoughts. There was a tension she had never recognized before, a gentle but unmistakable longing that made her pulse quicken. She tried to steady her breathing, to act casual. But her fingers twitched nervously against the edge of her sweater. A loud crack of thunder startled her, and she jumped slightly, laughing nervously. Daniel's hand reached out instinctively to brush against hers, not quite touching, yet close enough that warmth spread through her fingers. Storms always make everything feel... He started trailing off as if searching for the right words. Emma tilted her head, intrigued. "Feel what?" she asked softly, not wanting to break the fragile spell of the moment. Daniel looked down, then back at her, and for a heartbeat, the room seemed to hold still. "Feel alive," he finished quietly. Emma's breath caught. Alive. It wasn't just about the storm or the candles, or even the quiet room. It was the way he spoke, the way he looked at her, the unspoken words that hung heavily in the candlelight. She realized then that for years she had misread the signals, ignored the small gestures, and assumed that friendship was all there could ever be. But now, in this softly lit room with the rain racing outside, she felt something shift inside her. The wind rattled the windows. The rain tapped insistently against the glass, and the flickering candlelight cast long shadows that danced across the walls. Emma realized she was holding her breath, waiting for something she didn't yet understand. Daniel's eyes never left hers, and she suddenly felt the weight of years of friendship, of shared laughter and quiet moments press against her chest. She wasn't sure if it was fear, anticipation, or hope, but she knew that whatever it was, tonight would change everything. And then, without warning, the lights flickered back on. The spell of the candlelight vanished, replaced by the harsh glow of electricity. Emma felt a pang of disappointment, almost as if the magic of the moment had been interrupted. Daniel glanced around, then back at her, his expression unreadable. "Well," he said quietly, almost to himself, "I guess we're back." But the look in his eyes told her that nothing had gone back to normal. The storm, the silence, the candles, they had stripped away the barriers, if only for a few hours, and revealed something real, something waiting to be acknowledged. Emma sat there, heart racing, realizing that she had never been so aware of him before. The room was bright, the storm still raging outside, but inside, everything felt suspended. She didn't know what would happen next. Didn't know if words would be spoken or if they would both remain trapped in this unspoken tension. All she knew was that tonight something had shifted, something delicate and fragile and undeniable, and she had no idea where it would lead. The storm outside had intensified, wind whipping the trees against the windows and rain pouring down in thick sheets. But inside, the house felt calm and almost timeless. Emma sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands clasped together in her lap, and glanced at Daniel. He had moved to the armchair across from her, leaning forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. His gaze fixed on her in a way that made her pulse quicken. There was a seriousness in his eyes she had rarely seen before, one that made the playful, teasing Daniel of past years feel distant, almost like a memory. "I never realized how strong a storm could feel when you're inside," Emma said softly, trying to fill the silence that had stretched between them. Her words felt trivial, but the sound of her own voice made her heart beat faster. Daniel's lips curved into a small, wry smile, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked past her for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts before finally speaking. "You've always been there," he said slowly, each word deliberate, carrying weight she hadn't expected. "Even when I didn't notice, even when I tried not to care, you were there." Emma felt her chest tighten. She had always known he was kind, reliable, thoughtful, but hearing it said so directly, with that quiet intensity, made something stir inside her. Her mind raced through all the moments she had shared with him over the years, the times he had appeared when she was struggling, the little notes he would leave just to make her smile, the way he somehow knew when she needed company without her saying a word. She had assumed these were gestures of friendship, small, comforting acts, but now, in the dim light of the storm and with the steady seriousness in his voice, she wondered if she had been wrong. The room seemed to shrink around them, the candlelight flickering across walls and furniture, casting long shadows that made everything feel intimate, suspended in time. Emma felt a sudden rush of warmth, a mix of nervousness and anticipation that made her stomach flutter. She wanted to reach out, to close the distance between them, but the weight of his words held her in place, making her hesitate. Daniel leaned back slightly, running a hand through his hair as if trying to steady himself. "I've always cared about you, Emma, more than I've ever let anyone know, more than I've even allowed myself to admit. And tonight it just feels impossible to stay quiet." Her heart ached in a way she hadn't expected. It wasn't fear or uncertainty, though those feelings were there. Was recognition. The sudden clarity that the connection between them had been there all along, growing quietly, patiently, and now demanding acknowledgement. She remembered every small gesture, every time his presence had been a comfort, every look that lingered a second too long, and realized that they had all been signs of something far deeper than friendship. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I've always cared too, but I never wanted to make things complicated. I thought," she paused, her eyes meeting his. "I thought it was just me, imagining things." Daniel's gaze softened, filled with a mixture of relief and quiet joy. "It wasn't just you," he said simply. "It was never just you. I've felt it too, every step of the way, and I guess I hoped. Maybe he hoped you would see it too." The sound of the storm outside seemed to fade, replaced by the beating of their own hearts, loud in the silence of the candlelit room. Emma realized she was leaning forward slightly, drawn by the intensity of his honesty, by the sudden rawness of emotion she had never expected from someone so composed. She could feel the tension between them, the unspoken words that had been building for years, finally demanding release. For a moment, neither spoke, caught in the weight of shared realization. The quiet between them was no longer empty. It was charged, alive, full of possibility and fear and longing all at once. Emma's fingers itched to reach for him to bridge the distance. But she waited, knowing that this moment, fragile as it was, needed no rush. Daniel's voice finally broke the silence, low and steady, almost a whisper. "I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you. Not as a friend, not as anything. I want us to be real. I want you to know exactly how I feel." Emma's chest tightened, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from a rush of emotion too powerful to contain. She had spent years building walls, keeping feelings carefully tucked away, but tonight, with the storm raging outside and Daniel's honesty filling the room, the walls began to crumble. She realized that she wanted the same thing. He did something honest, something true, something that went beyond friendship and small gestures. "I want that too," she whispered, barely audible, her voice trembling with both fear and hope. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and full of weight. Daniel's lips curved into a small, relieved smile. He leaned forward slightly, but not too close, giving her the space to process, the room still filled with the soft glow of candlelight and the storm's steady rhythm. "Then we'll figure it out," he said quietly, "together. No rush, no pressure, just together." Emma nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief, joy, and anticipation. She realized that this was the beginning of something new, something they had both felt but never spoken, and that the night storm, the flickering candles, and the quiet honesty between them had finally opened the door. As the rain continued to drum against the windows and the wind shook the trees outside, Emma and Daniel sat together in silence, no longer just friends, yet not needing to define the moment fully. For the first time, they both understood the depth of what had always existed between them. The storm had brought more than darkness, it had brought clarity, and for Emma, it was a night she would never forget. The storm outside began to ease, though the rain still tapped insistently against the windows, a steady rhythm that mirrored Emma's heartbeat. Inside, the house had grown quiet, the remaining echoes of the party long gone, leaving only the soft flicker of candlelight and the lingering tension between her and Daniel. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, hands loosely clasped and eyes fixed on her with an intensity she had never seen before. Emma shifted slightly on the sofa, unsure whether to speak or remain silent, feeling the pull of unspoken emotions thick in the air. Every glance, every pause seemed deliberate, almost magnetic. She realized that for the first time she was seeing him not just as her friend, but as someone who had carried hidden depths all. A long dot. Daniel broke the silence first, his voice low, measured, but unmistakably heartfelt. "Emma, I've tried to act like this was nothing, like I could keep it all inside, but I can't anymore. I need you to know how I truly feel." His words were simple, yet the weight behind them made her stomach twist. She had never heard him speak like this, never with such vulnerability, never with the quiet intensity that now filled the room. She leaned forward slightly, caught off guard by the sudden rush of emotion his confession stirred in her. "Daniel, I don't know what to say," she murmured. Her voice was shaky, betraying the storm of feelings inside her. "I mean, I've always felt something too, but I never wanted to risk it. I didn't want to lose what we have." Daniel's expression softened, a flicker of relief crossing his features. "I don't want to lose it either," he admitted, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "But I can't pretend anymore that being just friends is enough. I've carried this for so long, Emma, and every time I thought I was careful, I was just falling deeper." Her chest tightened at his words. She remembered every small gesture, every moment he had been there, every time he had gone out of his way to make her feel supported or cared for. What she had once dismissed as friendship now revealed itself as something far deeper. She realized that the quiet loyalty, the little surprises, the way he always noticed the smallest details about her life had always been him trying to show how much she mattered. Daniel leaned back slightly, taking a deep breath as though steadying himself for what came next. "I love you, Emma," he said, finally letting the words out into the open. The simplicity of the declaration struck her more than anything, more than any grand gesture ever could. It wasn't dramatic or overblown. It was real, sincere, and it made her heart ache with recognition. Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. But they weren't tears of sadness, they were the release of years of tension, of feelings unspoken, of longing restrained by fear. She wanted to reach out to close the space between them, but she hesitated, afraid to break the fragile balance of the moment. Daniel noticed her pause and offered a small, reassuring smile. "You don't have to say anything right now," he whispered. "I just needed you to know." The storm outside softened to a gentle drizzle, the harsh gusts of wind replaced by a steady patter on the roof. It was as if the weather had mirrored the intensity of their emotions, building to a crescendo and now calming, leaving clarity in its wake. Emma's mind raced, remembering the countless times they had shared quiet moments together, the late-night talks, the walks in the park, the coffee runs where he had somehow always appeared at the right time. Every memory now seemed like a sign, a hint of the truth she had been too cautious to admit. "I think I always knew," she finally whispered, her voice trembling but steady. "I just didn't know if I was allowed to feel this." Her hands rested on her knees, fingers fidgeting nervously as she spoke. "I was scared of losing you, of changing everything between us." Daniel's eyes softened, filled with a warmth that made her heart swell. "Nothing has to change, Emma," he said gently. "Except maybe we allow ourselves to be honest. That's all." His words were simple, but they carried a promise, a quiet assurance that he wasn't asking for more than she could give. "Just honesty." Emma nodded, feeling the tension in her chest begin to ease. She realized that the fear she had carried for so long, the fear of ruining a friendship, of stepping over an invisible line, was slowly dissolving in the presence of Daniel's calm sincerity. She saw the years of hidden emotion reflected in his gaze, a depth she had never truly noticed until now. Daniel reached out slowly, hesitantly, his hand hovering just above hers. Emma felt a shiver run through her, a mixture of anticipation and nervous excitement. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let him close the distance, letting their hands touch lightly. The contact was gentle, unassuming, yet it sent a wave of warmth through her entire body. It was a simple touch, but it carried years of longing, years of unspoken words, the weight of emotions that had finally found a way to surface. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to do this," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the soft rain outside. Emma smiled faintly, a tear slipping down her cheek despite herself. She realized in that moment that she didn't want to fight it anymore, that the years of hesitation, careful restraint, had been unnecessary. The connection between them had always been there, waiting for acknowledgement. And now it was impossible to ignore. They sat in silence for a moment, hands still lightly clasped, eyes locked, each trying to process the shift in their relationship. The candlelight flickered softly, casting shadows that danced across the walls, creating an intimate cocoon that felt removed from the rest of the world. Emma's thoughts were a whirlwind, memories and emotions colliding, yet amidst the chaos, there was a profound sense of clarity. She finally understood the depth of Daniel's feelings, and, more importantly, she recognized the truth of her own heart. "I've always cared," she admitted quietly, her voice steady now, despite the storm of emotions inside her. "Maybe I was scared to admit it, but it's always been more than friendship." Her words hung in the air, fragile yet powerful, a mirror to Daniel's earlier confession. He smiled softly, a mixture of relief and quiet joy. "Then we're both honest now," he said simply. "That's all we need." His thumb brushed lightly over her hand, sending a gentle warmth up her arm. It was intimate without being overwhelming, comforting without being possessive. Emma felt herself relax, the years of restraint and careful boundaries dissolving in the warmth of the moment. For the first time, the storm outside felt irrelevant. The room, the candles, the quiet flicker of light was all secondary to the honesty they shared, the connection that had been waiting patiently for acknowledgement. Emma realized that tonight wasn't just about confessions or fear. It was about understanding, about recognizing that the bond they had built over years of friendship was now evolving into something far more profound. Daniel leaned back slightly, still holding her hand, and exhaled a slow, steady breath. "I don't want to rush anything," he said, his voice calm. "We've spent so long building this. I just want us to take the next step, carefully, together." Emma nodded, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known was possible. She had spent years navigating the complexities of their friendship, worrying about what might happen if she admitted her feelings. And now, sitting here with him, she realized that the fear had been unnecessary. The truth, once revealed, was far simpler and far more beautiful than she had ever imagined. As the storm outside faded completely into a soft drizzle, Emma and Daniel remained seated, hands touching, hearts aligned in quiet understanding. The night had shifted something inside both of them, a recognition of feelings long held and now finally voiced. For Emma, it was a moment of clarity, a turning point where friendship and love intertwined, creating a delicate balance that promised something real, lasting, and profoundly meaningful. In that quiet room, lit by candlelight and accompanied by the gentle rhythm of rain, Emma finally understood the depth of Daniel's heart. And as she looked into his eyes, she realized that what she felt for him had always been there too, waiting patiently for the right moment to emerge. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a quiet, glistening world outside the windows. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle, and occasional flashes of moonlight pierced the clouds, casting silver light into the room. Inside, the atmosphere felt charged with something neither Emma nor Daniel had fully named yet, but both understood in their hearts. They had spent hours in quiet conversation, in confessions and tentative touches. And now the weight of unspoken words seemed to dissolve, replaced by a sense of clarity and possibility. Emma sat close to Daniel on the sofa, her hand still resting in his, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the room or the fading candlelight. It was the warmth of connection, of years of silent understanding, now spoken aloud. She felt her chest lighten, the years of restraint, doubt, and careful observation giving way to relief. She could finally breathe fully and freely, knowing that the man she had quietly adored for so long felt the same. Daniel's eyes were fixed on hers, steady and unwavering, but there was a softness there that made her heart ache with recognition. "I never realized how much I needed to say all of this," he admitted quietly, his voice low and sincere. "I thought being quiet, being careful was the right thing, but I see now that honesty is everything." Emma smiled, a mixture of relief and quiet joy flooding her. "I've always known," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "But I didn't know if I could trust it was real. Tonight makes it real." Her words hung in the candlelit room, fragile but strong, a reflection of the vulnerability and trust they now shared. Daniel leaned forward, his other hand joining hers, fingers intertwining naturally. "You've always mattered to me, Emma," he said, the words simple but weighted with sincerity. "More than I could ever express. I didn't know how to tell you without scaring you away, but I can't keep it in anymore. You're the most important person in my life." Emma's eyes glistened as she absorbed his words. She had spent countless nights wondering if Daniel's presence, his small gestures, his thoughtful care, were signs of deeper feelings, and now she had confirmation. The realization was overwhelming, yet comforting. She finally understood the depth of his heart, the constancy of his devotion, and it made her own feelings feel validated, recognized, and safe. The room felt suspended in time, the soft flicker of candlelight and the quiet drip of rain outside creating a cocoon around them. Emma shifted slightly closer to Daniel, drawn by the honesty and vulnerability that had emerged between them. There was no rush, no need for dramatic gestures, just the quiet, steady presence of two hearts finally acknowledging each other. "I've always been afraid," she admitted softly, "that if I let myself feel too much, it would ruin everything. But now I see that it's worth it." Her voice was steady, though emotions danced in her eyes. Daniel squeezed her hand gently, a reassuring gesture, and she felt a wave of calm wash over her. He leaned back slightly, resting his forehead against the edge of her temple, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight," he said quietly. "We just need to be honest with each other. That's enough. Everything else can come naturally." Emma nodded, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The fear of losing their friendship, the hesitation, the silent wondering about what he felt all of it, had been replaced by clarity and trust. She realized that the bond they had built over years of friendship was now evolving into something richer, deeper, and more meaningful than either of them could have anticipated. Outside, the moon emerged fully from behind the clouds, casting pale light into the room and highlighting the contours of Daniel's face. Emma studied him for a long moment, memorizing the subtle expressions, the quiet strength, and the warmth in his eyes. Every small detail made her heart swell. Every glance confirmed the connection that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Daniel noticed her gaze and smiled softly. A quiet, intimate smile meant only for her. "I never stopped noticing you," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Even when I acted like I didn't, even when I tried to hide it, I noticed everything about you. Every laugh, every look, every little habitat, all stayed with me. And tonight, I realize I can't imagine my life without you." Emma felt tears prick her eyes again. This time not from confusion or fear, but from recognition and joy. "I've always noticed you too," she admitted, her voice trembling but honest. "I've always felt it, even if I couldn't say it. And now, hearing you, it feels like everything makes sense." They sat in silence for a few moments, hands still intertwined, hearts beating in quiet rhythm. The storm outside was gone, leaving only the soft sound of rain dripping from the eaves, a gentle reminder of the intensity that had brought them to this point. Inside, they were cocooned in a space of intimacy, honesty, and quiet understanding, a moment suspended in time, precious and unrepeatable. Daniel broke the silence once more, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I want to take this slow," he said. "I want to make sure we do this right. I don't want to rush anything or risk losing what we have. I just want us." Emma smiled through her tears, squeezing his hand gently. "Us," she echoed, the words simple yet loaded with meaning. It was an acknowledgement of shared history, shared trust, and the promise of something deeper. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where Daniel wasn't just her friend, but something more. Someone she could rely on. Someone who understood her in ways no one else ever had. The room grew quieter still as the candles flickered lower, their lights softening, creating long shadows that danced across the walls. Emma rested her head lightly against Daniel's shoulder.